Hello, ladies and gentlemen. A very tired Grin here, but welcome back to Let's Talk. We're making quite a bit of these, because reasons I mentioned in previously other videos. Because I need coffee. Didn't think I was this tired. It hit me like a truck in the span of like 2 seconds. Jesus. Mug of this video. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Let's Talk. Today we are going to be talking about a book. This book is called The War of Art. Now, with that being said, I am not as knowledgeable about it as I wish I was, because I listened to this book kind of in the background. If I had to do anything, I put it on whilst I was doing things, so my brain kind of went back and forth between like hardcore listening and absorbing to doing the thing that I really had to get done. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. But nevertheless, this book is still fantastic for all the reasons that it was suggested to me. The main thing that the book is, and everyone that's ever suggested this to me has always said that it is a book that is directed for people that have a hard time finishing things, specifically finishing projects that are of the nature of art. So like maybe you want to be a person that draws, but you never really finish a drawing. Maybe you're a person that always puts off you getting better at drawing. Maybe you're a person that always puts off whatever form you want to define to be art. That could be literally every and anything. But say it's dancing, you put off dancing. This book is supposed to kick your ass and tell you, hey, get it done, do it, finish it, that kind of thing. So that's what I've heard all around, is people saying that the book's great because it helps with that big bad thing, like this thing that everyone kind of faces. Now, with that being said, I am not quite that. I'm pretty good about whenever I start something, I just finish it, because I don't like it being in the air, like dead air, kind of just hanging there over my head, waiting to not be finished, I guess. Anyways, so I didn't quite have that, but the book covers a bunch of other things. Also, I thought, well, maybe I'll find myself in that situation where I'm relentless to finish something. Now, the book starts with mainly covering, how do I put it? So, like, you know how Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, kind of, it talks about malice and things like that. Like, that's the head word that he uses, is there's all these malice in the world and etc. Not necessarily his book, but his speeches. Anyways, this book talks about things like doubt and mainly resistance. That's the word. It took me a while to figure it out, to remember it, but it's resistance. That's the main thing the author just keeps hammering into your head, is that there's this thing when it comes to finishing projects, and there's this resistance. Now, this can be anything from you writing like a book all the way up to completion, but then out of fear not finishing it, because out of maybe it's fear of what people will think when they read it, and you don't want to finish it because that would mean you would have to send it off to be judged, or worse, you make the book in all its entirety and then you'd never mail it because you're terrified of the instance. All of these forms of resistance, again, the main basic one he talks about is the resistance of you even completing your project. And then furthermore in the book he talks about the difference between a amateur and professional, and it's all good. I'll say this first and foremost, it's one of the smallest books I've ever read. Well, not true. When you're in like kindergarten you read tiny books, but like my adult life, it's one of the smallest books I've ever read. It's like 3 hours long, feels like an hour and a half. The dude is very like hammering home what his points. Like, it's not like this thing where he loops around metaphors for 10 minutes. It's like, no, here's the reason, here's why, here's my perception on these things, this is my own experience, and bang, and it's all signed, sealed, delivered, and thrown at you. And I feel like that's why people enjoyed it so much, is it wasn't this like cookie cutter kind of bullshit. It was this dude being like, no, here are all the reasons why you should basically finish your project, and furthermore, you should pursue what you enjoy, but you should also go with the guise of being a professional, which he talks about. When it comes to the essence of a professional, it's like a mixture, and this is a chapter I was doing stuff with heavily when I was listening to it, so forgive me if I'm butchering it, but it's the idea of like loving your craft and understanding that. I think one of the things he said was, it's like a professional loves what he does, and that's what fuels him. But if he makes money about it, that's great too. But the base fact is that he does it because he loves it and he wants to improve on it. Then he also goes into things like the professional will take jobs that he knows will improve him, not just things that he knows he's done before. He harkens back to like actors that are some of the best actors we've ever seen in our generation, being like, hey, this is what this is, or they always take roles that they've never done before. And then he harkens to an example of like how to hold yourself, which is always nice. I always think like things like that. It's like, well, why should you be a half decent person and not be a spaz and a psychopath and all these things? And then people always passively talk about this stuff, which I like. But he talks about the idea that Tiger Woods' event thing, where he was about to take a shot, and then one of the people there, I guess, took a picture with flash on, and Tiger Woods stood up, looked at him, like glared at him, and then went back to playing. And he was talking about how you should separate like the game from the critics and just focus on doing your best in the game and not focus too much on things that may make you mad within the other environment. I don't think he's trying to preach to be ignorant and not listen to people. I think he's trying to preach control and understanding of oneself in the form of anything really, but in his description it was art specifically. But yeah, as a whole, I found myself kind of, and it was weird, but I found myself really understanding why the book did well, because of and this was made in 2012, 10, something like that, 6 maybe, I don't know, but it was around there, and it was pretty recent slash like a long time ago, depending on what you think. But needless to say, I when I was reading it, I could hear that the dude spoke directly, and he spoke clearly, and he spoke in this way that was like trying to get you to understand that when you just don't want to do something and you procrastinate to a degree, especially when it comes to like art, which is the reason why that's different than other things, I believe, is because art is in a way not necessary for your daily life. Like, it's not the same as you having paperwork or you having dishes. It's this thing that's like, oh, you don't really need to do it, but if you want to get better at it, you do need to do it. But then again, you could always just not get better at it. It's like this different kind of thing where it's like another layer of, do you really need to do that? Whereas like your taxes or your dishes that are getting all gross, your room's getting dirty, you're like, okay, there's a certain point to where it'll start affecting you negatively if you don't do it, which some could say art can do the same thing. If you're really passionate about what you're doing, you're not doing it. Anyways, just to give an idea of what that looks like, that to realize that when you put off maybe drawing, if you want to be an artist, or maybe when you put off, I don't know, maybe you want to be a dancer, whatever your like form of self-expression, which in a sense is art. The more you push that off, the more you, in a sense, are hurting yourself. But also, he gives you a way to like find that, oh, this thing is bad because of this. Like a resistance. He constantly preaches that word. Like, when you don't want to do this, there's this resistance to do it, and you're always better off doing it. Whether that's writing a story, whether that's doing anything, and he talks about like a bunch of different variants, like finish what you're doing, even if it's bad, just get it done. And when someone hates what you do, then congratulations, baby, you're there, you've made it, you've actually failed, and now you're gonna continue. Rather than just failing and stopping, which is what everyone does, where, as he says, that's the mark of a professional, is someone who fails monumentously, but then trails on forward, or carries on forward. And just the book is filled with things like this. And again, I do plan, that's why I said at the beginning of the video, I didn't read it to the degree in which I would like to, like just to sit down, fully take it in, hear every word, let it sink in, read the next chapter. I was just kind of like, oh, I have a second, let's read this, or listen to this book. Bang. Yeah, by the way, I was listening to it. I'm not like sitting there doing chores and like looking at a book, just like multitasking like a psycho, no. But yeah, man, that's kind of it. I don't know what else to say besides that was why I put that little bumper on the top of the video at the beginning of the video, because I was like, I don't know, man, I want to take this book in more, and I do have like snippets, and what he says does resonate, and I've noticed myself I just appreciate that stuff now. The idea of being able to place something that is like a name on something that you otherwise never would have even really paid attention to. So when someone goes through, hey, this is the thing that is beating your ass, and it's called resistance, and this is what forms it takes, and this is what it wants from you, and this is why you should not want it, and you should do everything in your power to break resistance. Which is also something that I've for the longest time kind of had a hard time with, is the not resistance, but the kind of a similar beat to it, which is hesitation. It's kind of a different thing. Resistance, he mainly hammers home as like this force that stops you from getting the things that you want done because of doubt, because of monotony, because why try, and you're not going to become the next big thing, but who knows, you might, or whatever. Or the artist's mentality or dream. Anyways, he talks. That's its own thing. But then the thing that I'm talking about, which is hesitation, is kind of a similar thing. But it's the kind of the, oh, I could do this, but I just won't. I just won't. You know, and you kind of suffer. I suffer from that quite a bit, where you kind of start digging yourself a hole to say, I could just stay here forever. You know, I could just not progress. I could just never try this thing, never get out of my comfort zone. I could just stay in the realm of what is safe and known to me. You know, I feel like a lot of people have that, where like it's super easy just to be like, but why? You know, but why exercise? But why try to talk to a brand new person every day? Why do I need to do any of that? You don't. You should. You fucking should, but you don't. And it's kind of this messy bit of business, I guess you'll call it. But yeah, I don't know. The book was good. And the book, I think I'll read it a lot more. But when I do, I think that'll be the saving grace to a certain extent, where if I can really take in all the information. I don't think I'll make a part 2 to this. I just think I'll suggest the book, because even me just listening to it in the background whenever I had a second was awesome, was great. Again, it flew by. It's one of those books where I was like, oh my god, it's been like 3 hours. Jesus. I really like what we're doing now. I really like the idea, by the way, of just like, I heard once in a video of a person saying that he was an auditory learner, and I was kind of like, well, okay. And for some reason, it resonated with me, where I was just like, yeah. And I've never been good at reading, and I've always had like this weird thing where when I look at a page of words, my brain just starts to freak out, and like the words start to like blend into each other a little bit. It's weird. But I never thought about it that way, but like I always thought, oh, I'll just have to figure that out. But it's like, no, you can just listen to people read you things, and sure, you should also try to improve the whole reading thing, but at the same time, right now, why not do both? Why not try to get better reading when you can, but also not stop taking in information and trying to learn different things? And yeah, I feel like the next book I want to read, because I have this other book that's called The Americas Before, which is all about like ancient civilizations, which I think is just fun. It's just fun to listen to. But that's like a big book. I think I want to try to find, honestly, the next book I want to try to read or listen to is a book about improv. Sorry, I think a book about improv would be just delightful. And it also, well, it's either going to be delightful or the worst, because it's going to be like a bunch of people being like, let me tell you how to be funny and how to come up with just wacky things. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I do want to know how you can get a ball rolling and keep it going. You know what I mean? That I think could be fun. And yeah, I don't know. There's stuff like that. I like, as much as I do like the Americas Before, which is kind of like this, just going through information and kind of coming up with these assumptions, which is awesome. But I do like things that are like self-improvement things. Like, I don't know, I'm sure there's books that's like, hey, I don't know, 200 things that you could talk to someone about that are interesting and fun, that you could like bring up in random conversation to anybody and kind of just shoot the shit with them and like be like, what the fuck's going on, you know, and chat about that. Stuff like that I think would be like things I'm aiming for my next books I want to listen to and understand and learn from. But yeah, I don't know. Again, I would highly suggest that if there's anyone who feels really jaded in a sense by like having a bad school experience and whatnot, again, just listening to a book, like just downloading it and listening to shit. I'm not sponsored by anybody, by the way. I'm just like, hey, I just found that, again, if you're like me and you're like, maybe you're not in high school anymore, you're like out just doing your job, it makes you feel good also when you just intake information, like just it being like, oh, I never knew that before and now I do. Good. And all it takes is you just to download a couple things that you're interested in and learn from them. Keep your brain learning, and especially if you understand that as a reward system, so you understand the idea of, oh, this is good for me. Constantly keeping my brain obtaining information and learning things is good. And if you really hammer that home, you'll feel good when you finish a book, when you finish something like that. And you won't feel like this weird superiority, which I feel like some people kind of have, but you'll feel this empowerment of oneself of being like, all right, that's awesome. And then maybe you'll notice when you're talking to a person that you just met, a female, a friend, a grandparent, a parent, you'll be like, oh, I have this thing that I could share with them. Whereas beforehand, there was just kind of like, I didn't know what else to say, or I didn't know what to say to them in this instance, because we've talked about everything and anything. Well, you could just find more things to talk about. Anyways, I just think that's that. Again, I wish I could do more justice to the book. I want to read. I have to read things like 2 or 3 times just to really, really intake it. especially books that are like self-help and like trying to get you to understand the world around you and be less confused, is always awesome to me. But they always take a little bit of time to really like not only listen to but put in practice, and understand is a whole thing with me. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. Subscribe button over no, actually I don't even know where they are because we're framed in a weird way, baby. I don't know. Regardless, hopefully you guys do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for your time, and goodbye.